Here we are, Life in Stages. I'm Joel Greenberg, and today we are talking with and spending time with Rebecca Northan. And I should say at the outset, Rebecca is somebody that I've met. I've not met in person. I have first met Rebecca by sitting in the audience and watching her on stage more than once. And today we are meeting via Zoom because while I'm in the studio with Mike, Rebecca is in Edmonton. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Good. Yeah, no, it is. It's lovely to have this opportunity. And let me start. The one thing that I do that is consistent is my curiosity with where people or how people found their way to the profession that they have committed their professional lives to. So was performance or the arts or any aspect of this part of your upbringing?
No. Other than I do have a memory of Quest Theatre, which is a Calgary-based TYA company, coming and performing in the gym at my elementary school.
Okay.
And me being utterly transported by some play about an alien who has a houseplant. That's all I remember. And then my brother and I used to do performances and commercial parodies for our parents in the living room. And both of us, I think, got addicted to making people laugh at a really early age. So it was like, ooh, that feels good. Yeah. I need to do more of that. But there was no tradition of our family. Like, I was not taken by my parents to see theater. I have a cousin who's in the arts that I found out about much, like a sort of a second cousin, much later. And she tells me that there is theater in our family history, but I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. So how, apart from in addition to the TYA show that you saw in Calgary, where did the connection begin, or where did the pull? How did it find you?
Like I said, I think first and foremost, entertaining family members is where it began. Where the desire came from, I don't know. I think it's one of those things of like it's chooses you, and then you listen to it or you don't, and it's uncomfortable when you don't, and it feels really like you're sort of following your own sense of pleasure of like, ooh, I don't know, that feels good when I do that. There's something satisfying in being the center of attention short term, or eliciting a response from those around you, and then, elaborate play with kids in the neighborhood. I'm thinking back on it. I didn't, for example, I was never in a drama class until I was in high school. Right. But the impulse was there long before that. So it's like, once I got into a drama class in the 10th grade, woo, that was it. I was done. Okay. I was in. Yeah.
And did you train after high school? Did you do formal training?
I did. I did. Well, so here's the thing is I sort of had two simultaneous tracks of training. Yeah. I started volunteering and taking free classes in exchange at the Loose Moose Theatre in Calgary with Keith Johnstone, who was the inventor of theater sports and a world-renowned improv teacher. Yep. And so I was doing that. I started doing that when I was 16. Right. Then I graduated high school and went and enrolled in a Bachelor of Fine Arts program at the University of Calgary. Okay. And so I was doing Loose Moose and more formal training at the same time. Right. And the professor I had the best connection with at the university was Pamela Brooke, who, worked at the Stratford Festival in the early to mid 70s. So I had these simultaneous tracks of improvisation on the one hand and Shakespeare and like really formal training on the other hand with Pamela. And I loved them both equally. Yeah. So I actually feel quite fortunate about that. It's certainly caused some probably internal artistic tension in the best way. Yeah.
Well, I think, from what I know of your work, it's interesting to hear that because it sounds like it's informed everything, the various things that you've done and that you continue to do.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. I did it. I interviewed for a directing internship at one point, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and one of the it was for the Langham program at the Stratford Festival, and I was interviewing with Martha Henry and Bonnie Green, and one of the questions that came up was like, "Why are you applying to Stratford? We only know you as the person from the improv world,
right?
And improv is chaos." And here at the Stratford Festival, the work we do is highly structured. I was so glad that they asked the question that way, because I hadn't really thought about it up until that moment in time. Where I said, to be a great improviser, you in fact need to be obsessed with structure.
Right.
Obsessed with it. You have to understand narrative better than anyone. You are in fact engaged in spontaneous playwriting. So improvisation is the spontaneous reaching for structure, whereas the flip side, I know this both as an actor and a director, is if I'm engaged in Shakespeare, let's say, and we can say that that's highly structured, well, inside of that, if I'm being a good actor, I'm leaning into the structure to find moments of spontaneity. Right. So I really see them as both sides of the same coin. I make no distinction, but certainly over the course of my career, I more often than not will hear from people who don't know me yet, "Oh, you're that improv chick. Yeah. How will you possibly make your way through this scripted piece of theater?"
Yeah, the curse of, I guess the curse of a limited imagination or something. I mean, how quickly people are typecast, and people who you think should know better because they themselves have probably been on the receiving end of that at some point.
It's actually shocking how quickly we pigeonhole each other in the arts, when you would think actually as artists we should be the last people engaging in pigeonholing, but it sure happens. Yeah. No, I mean, it happened to me in Toronto when I moved here from Montreal, and the first work I did in Toronto was musical theater. Oh no! And that's it. It was. You just said it, and I remember. I loved musical theater, but it wasn't what it was something that I did outside of the training that I had, because the program that I was in didn't even recognize that musical theater was like the poor relation that had you couldn't bring that into the training process. So I remember going to what was then Toronto Free Theatre, and I knew the artistic director from Montreal, and I said, I'm really interested in working here. He said, "But we don't do musicals." I said, "No, I know you don't. That's why I'm here. And you do know me, and you knew me in Montreal before I did musicals." He said, "No, but we don't do musicals." So I didn't get. I'm shaking my head at that. It makes me crazy, because as an artist, I want to do everything. Yeah. I mean, I also have deep musical theater fantasies. I want to live in a world where your emotions are so big that you can only burst into song. How wonderful. Yeah. Why that suddenly is like, oh, you've been painted with that brush, and also that somehow parts of our community look down on it is utterly baffling to me. I do not understand it. I think artists need to be able to be supple and flexible and do a little bit of everything. Yeah. No, that honestly. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. So you did those 2 parallel tracks. Yeah. And how long? And when did you? Was there a point where you left Calgary, or were you working as you finished the training? Did you then just move into the professional world? I actually started working professionally before I graduated. Okay. Which caused a little bit of tension with my professors, who didn't think I should be working yet. But I said, would you rather I wait tables? Yeah. I'm like, and one of them actually said, yes. We're not sure that you're ready yet. And I thought, well, this artistic director thinks I'm ready. Exactly. See you later. I'm skipping. I got to go to rehearsal. So I was lucky enough to start working before I graduated, and then that continued. Okay. So I was already working in mainstream theater, and then also simultaneously producing my own work from a very early age, because I had access to a theater space through Loose Moose.
Okay.
Which, because I grew up there, I didn't really know the value of it. But the deal was that, I could go to the artistic director and pitch an idea. And if he thought it had merit, he would say, yeah, okay, you can have the theater for no money.
Right.
Yeah. I could just have the space and put up my posters and then do a 60-40 box office split, 60% for me.
Right.
Spoiled.
Yes.
So spoiled at an early age.
Yeah.
And so I did that for quite a long time. It wasn't until, I felt like I sort of hit a glass ceiling in Calgary. I wanted to be busier than I was.
Yeah.
I wanted opportunity to be considered for bigger contracts, including film and television, because I'm a little capitalist in one corner of my heart. I just want to make money. And so then I looked at, well, Vancouver or Toronto.
Right.
And Toronto held the strongest attraction for me because I knew that there was a very robust theater community there. And I wanted to keep a balance between pursuing film and television and keeping myself involved in live theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you rate Toronto as a place to arrive in?
You mean as a prairie girl?
Oh, well, as somebody who's not from here. I mean, I know the reputation that Toronto has. I mean, I came from Montreal, so it wasn't that far. And Toronto and Montreal were always, I think, like the Calgary-Edmonton rivalry. They were cities that, that took pride in hating the other.
Yeah.
Which I didn't grow up with that, but I knew of that, and having come to Toronto, I couldn't understand why. But Toronto, I found Toronto to be not an easy city to arrive in. I didn't know anybody here. I mean, I knew one person, so it was a lot of work, and maybe it's a lot of work to go anywhere. But I don't know. I'm curious to know what it was like for you.
I was terrified to move to the big city. I mean, sorry, Toronto, but like everyone outside of Toronto hates you.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that many of my contemporaries from Loose Moose had moved to Toronto ahead of me. So I had a community that I was able to move into, like really, really dear friends. Yeah. Some of my best friends were already in Toronto. Okay. So that gave me a softer place to land. And it also meant that I had, aside from live theater connections, I had connections in the improv world with Second City. So I auditioned for Second City, I think within 3 or 4 months of landing in Toronto, and got hired there. And that helped in terms of going, okay, I've booked a job. Sure. There's a certain profile to working there, at least when it comes to auditioning for commercials, which was never my bag. However, it gave me a nice on-ramp, I think, to the city. Yeah.
No, that's a great way to arrive, and to not, to have a community. That is great. And I worked at Second City, but a lot in its very, very early years in Toronto, and I, not as a performer, I staged musical numbers, and I don't even know. I haven't seen Second City here for a while, but when it first started in Toronto, it was the Chicago people who brought Second City here, and so the template was absolutely whatever they did in Chicago, they did the same thing here, and every show ended with a quite extensive series of musical scenes, like a little mini musical. So I was the one who staged those moments, probably for the first 4 or 5 shows in Toronto.
Fantastic.
And it was amazing to watch the process, because I was not part of the creation of it, and because my background was exclusively theater, and I thought that improvisation, and I think it's not an unusual perception that every time the actors were on stage, they were making up something for the first time. So it was
not always.
No, it was very helpful to see how unique Second City was. I said, this is exhausting because it never stopped. The shows never stopped being rehearsed or written. It was constant, and it was great to be able to watch that without being. I wouldn't have had, I didn't have the skills to be in it, and it wasn't something I even thought of doing. But watching the kind of discipline that was demanded and the stamina was unlike I'd never seen. I had never experienced anything like that. Theater seemed so much more clearly structured and cleaner.
Yes. Yeah, it's incredible training. You know, it's as you say, it's exhausting. It never ends at Second City.
Yeah.
The model is very interesting. It demands a lot of you. You know, you need to be able to sing. You need to be able to dance. You need to be able to improvise. You need to be funny. You need to be a great actor. Yeah. You need to be a writer.
Yes.
Oh, and then you also, if you're in the touring company, you're understudying the main stage. That might mean that this happened to me once. I just got a phone call at 10 a.m. The person you understudy is sick. You're on tonight. We're going to courier a VHS tape to your house for you to learn your chair moves.
Yes.
And, it's because I live in so many different communities. Mainstream theater actors have no idea what it's like to show up to a sketch comedy show and rehearse your chair moves and have your colleagues go, "It's great you're here. Don't fuck up.
Yeah.
And do not step on my laugh line."
Yep. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like there's a directness between the performers when you're in the improv trenches together that just does not happen in the formal structure of mainstream theater.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I had time at Second City. Ultimately, it wasn't the best fit for me because I come from a different school of improvisation that is much more narrative and theatrically based. But I'm really grateful for the time I had. It taught me to be a great understudy.
Yeah.
How do you slot into a performance and take care of the other cast members so they don't really notice that it's not the regular person.
Yeah.
And I loved the singing and the dancing.
Yeah.
I love that. Or you walk in and you watch your main stage and you go, "Oh, I'm understudying that person who's playing electric guitar in that scene." I don't play electric guitar, but I guess I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, the musical part of it, which I loved. And most of the performers did too. And I remember early on an experience that I've never had since. One of the actors who was in the company, he'd been in the company for a few shows. I walked in, he said, "Oh, we're doing the music now." I said, "Fuck this."
Yeah.
And he left. And and the other said, "Don't worry about it. He won't be, he never does this part." I said, "Oh."
Imagine that pulling that in a mainstream theater show.
No. Yeah. How long were you with Second City?
Oh my gosh. I'm not sure.
Okay.
5 years.
Yeah. Wow.
6 years in varying capacities. I was in the touring company and then was on the main stage for 2 years, maybe a year and a half. I can't remember.
It's a real, I really did. I was amazed at the stamina and also the burnout. I mean, it was just so relentless. And for me, it was not for for the people doing it. It was a real grind.
There's also, I have to say, another one of the things that I loved about being there.
Yeah.
I had no idea I had such a long list of positive things to say about my time there. But once the main stage show is up and running and you are doing the same sketches every night for 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
there's a danger of getting bored, you know, or of overplaying stuff.
Yeah.
But I used it as an opportunity to search for economy. So as the performer, I would go, well, when I do it this way, I get quite a good laugh. Tonight, I'm going to do 20% less. Oh, same amount of laughs. Okay, well, on Wednesday night, I'm going to do even less. Bigger laugh. What? Bigger laugh when I do less.
Yeah.
It really became a performance laboratory in that sense, and enabled me to really dial in and out varying moments comedically to really kind of, I'm quite obsessive about what makes something funny.
Yeah.
And you seem to find the majority of folks that work at Second City have a similar obsession.
Yes, sure.
Of whether or not they express it in the same way is arguable. However, you can get quite scientific about it. And to me, it has something to do, it really has a lot to do with music.
Yeah.
That's how I experience comedy, both internally and externally. It's like, what's the music here? Oh, that pause is too long. Oh, that line needs to be delivered in a staccato way. Or I'm not great at speaking about it, but I know that it has to do with music. It really has to do with music.
Yeah. And the style of theater, well, Blind Date was the first project of yours that I saw. And I saw you do it. I saw it 2 or 3 times because I was really curious to see how it changed as the audience member who worked with you, how that changed. And it was fascinating. It really was fascinating to feel how different it was. So I'm just wondering, is that that style of performing that you have developed so well, was that in place before Second City? Was it influenced by anything you did, or was it a slow gestation?
What a great question. I probably a very slow gestation. I would say Blind Date is not influenced by Second City at all. It is deeply anchored in my Keith Johnstone roots. Yeah. And I would say that the values that come from that are, first and foremost, always tell a story. Always tell a story. If you go on the stage to be funny and then you're not, you will experience nothing but extreme despair and depression and public failure. Yeah. But if I go on the stage to tell a story and to allow myself to be changed, then I can bring my whole artistic self there. And then any silence that comes from the audience, I don't assume that I'm failing. Right. I'm engaged in storytelling. Yeah. So that's a big part of Blind Date. That's where Blind Date is highly structured, which is, I suppose, in a way, a funny thing to say about an improv show. But it's the structure of it that allows me to bring a member of the public up on stage and to actually be completely present with them. Right. So that because I can be at ease knowing that there's this protective framework that I can abandon if I need to. But I'm not in a panic joke writing place in my improv brain. Yeah. So that I know that as a good actor, I'm here to make a relationship with my scene partner, who happens to be an accountant tonight. And when the time feels right, I can move to the next moment in the structure. Sure. So that's for me is all Johnstone values, including from the time I was 16, all I ever heard him talk about was our responsibility as performers to take care of the audience, to hear them, to make them feel like they are your best house guest. So how do you treat your best house guest? That's a very different way of framing an audience than I'm in a comedy club doing stand-up, and if someone interrupts me, I'm aggressive to them. Yeah. And then at somewhere along the line, I also took some training with Mike Kennard and John Turner of Mump and Smoot. Yep. And so then the clown training folded into blind dates. And the other piece is that I was lucky enough when I first moved to Toronto to get a sort of job on the side with a company called E-Role Play, which was corporate training for bankers, which involved a lot of coaching. And so there's a big coaching piece to blind date, which happens either internally as part of the quote unquote role play of I'm your date and we're on this date together, or we need to take a time out because you've just said something so horrible in an attempt to be funny. Yes. Bless you, little accountant. I understand that pressure, but also you're not really the romantic hero when you make jokes at the expense of your date. So let's have a little coaching around that.
Yeah.
With great empathy.
Yes. Yeah.
And give you the opportunity to rewind and make a different choice so that you look better. Because really, I'm here to make you look good.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of you and make sure you have a nice time, including I'll save you from yourself if you need it.
Yeah. Well, so was Blind Date the first show like that where you took where you were working so directly with an audience member? Yeah.
I had experience doing improv shows at Loose Moose where you'd bring an audience member up to just do a scene with you. Right. But there's a big difference between a 3-minute sketch and a 90-minute performance.
Oh, for sure.
With one person.
And just to take the Blind Date, my experience of seeing Blind Date, I remember two totally different performances. In one, the guy who came up on stage was sweet and innocent and was doing his level best. He was such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And then about a week later, maybe something like that, I went back and I brought a friend. And this time, the person who came on stage, I had the strong feeling, and I think everyone in the audience did, that he thought he was the funniest person in the world.
Bless him.
Yeah. And so my curiosity is really to hear from you how you deal with that, with somebody who, at least from the outside watching, somebody who doesn't appear to be very interested in what you have to give them, but it feels that this is his moment, that he's used to being the clown, and he's used to.
Sure.
Yeah. So how do you deal, how is that?
Well, I love it. Yeah. I love the challenge of it. I love the mystery of who will be the co-star tonight.
Yeah.
And what will we uncover about them? It's a great lesson in letting go. It's like, okay, I have this structure and it's going to go A, B, C, D. It's not dissimilar. I describe it as, the outline of a picture in a coloring book. All right, well, there's the outline, but I have no idea how that picture is going to get colored in.
Yeah.
And the parts of my personality that are activated are different depending on who I'm sitting across, right? So I'm a different me with a very sweet, gentle soul than I am from the guy who's the funniest guy in the office who gets all the laughs at the water cooler. Yeah. But I love them both. I mean, that is one of our values, when I'm training other clowns to do Blind Date, is to say, we meet this person, we love them first. We love them first, and we practice profound empathy, which understands that quote unquote bad behavior, whatever that your definition of bad behavior is, more often than not comes from fear. And you can meet the greatest person in the lobby and you think, I'm picking this person, they're so much fun. And the thing we can never anticipate is how their fear will change them. So that if suddenly this is very different. And also, listen, if the guy is the funniest guy in the office and it turns out he is actually genuinely funny, I'm very happy to say great, please, you go be funny. Let me be the up close audience member. I'm happy to play with that or to co-create jokes with you or if, bless your wee cotton socks, you think you're funny, but you're not. Then maybe we need to have a little coaching around that. without me hurting your feelings or shaming you
Sure.
in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Really early on, we would do Q&As after some performances of Blind Date. People would say, like, do you ever just pick some asshole and bring him up on stage and teach him a lesson? And, I don't think that you really would want to watch that for 90 minutes.
No.
That is unkind. And it would make everyone in the audience so glad that it's not me up there.
Yeah.
But actually, what I want you to experience is thinking, God, I wish that was me.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been chosen.
Yeah.
How would I have risen to the challenge? That's more interesting to me as an artist, that the audience is having that experience. And also that the audience falls in love with the stranger.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's great, because the other the other option you pointed out just sounds like uncomfortably familiar with stand-up comics who are really good at damaging an audience and really throwing back, like, anything you can say, I can just do better, which can be funny once maybe, but it then becomes, we've all seen it. It becomes really nasty, and it's the tone of the evening can never return to where you had thought it was going to be.
Well, and the other thing is, I love it when audience members say, I came to see your show more than once.
Yeah.
I love it. There's the capitalist in me rearing her ugly head again. I'm like, you bought more than one ticket to my show? Fantastic. I prefer that. And I think that witnessing public kindness is the thing that generates repeat business over. Look, certainly there is an audience. There is an audience in the world for mean-spirited performance. Or we love a roast, but the best roast comes from a place of love anyway. Yeah.
I recently I was listening to a lot of political podcast stuff, which I've now set aside. And I've been listening to and finding a lot of stand-ups that first of all, I happily admit that I had no idea the scale of what the stand-up comedy world is, how huge it is, how many people do this, and I really thanks to various streaming platforms, that's how I've come, that and podcasts. I mean, that's how I've come to hear these people, and it's altogether. I mean, it's altogether different for somebody to be comic with heart, without it being soppy and sentimental.
Truly, yeah.
And with the aim of working with an audience and not working against. So it's not. I mean, it's not the old world of. And I use these names because they come quickly to mind, but it may not be that fair. But it's not the world of Don Rickles put downs and everybody's stupid but me. It's really been terrific. And to your point, about return engagements, I will go back to the same, even if it's the same program, because there's something very heartening about humor that is, I suppose, observational more than anything else, that has warmth. And
well, I mean, one of the things that I think is a wonderful trend in the world of stand-up comedy in particular is moving away from, as you say, mean-spirited comedy at the expense of the other. Right. And that now there seems to be quite a desire from audiences and an exchange with the stand-up comedian themselves of a pursuit of truth and vulnerability coming from the comedian. Yes. Where they say, here's a thing about me, I wonder if you're at all like that. And so it creates a warm community as opposed to a separation coming from cold laughs. Yeah, absolutely. That's of more interest to me as an artist. Yeah. So we've talked, you've talked about Blind Date, and it's clear that it has, I mean, it is its own thing. It's not its own beast. It really is a substantial
and the fact you talked about training, there are people who do it. You're not the only one. I mean, you created it. So have you had the opportunity, do you have the opportunity to act in a more traditional way, as well as, since you talked about enjoying the parallel tracks you had in training, are you able to satisfy those two parts of you?
Absolutely. I mean, 2 seasons ago, I spent the whole summer at the Shaw Festival in one of the productions written by Shaw.
Yeah.
How fantastic to apply yourself as an actor to that material. I love it. I mean, as someone who self-produces, when I do get hired to act in a mainstream production, it's such a treat. It's such a treat that I'm not hot gluing props and writing marketing copy and consulting with the poster designer. I love all those things. I really love them. But really just having the juicy privilege of being an actor in someone else's production is wonderful. I love it.
Would you like to be doing more of that, or is the balance, is it a good balance for you at the moment?
I think at the moment, I'm at a point in my life where I actually have pretty great balance. Like, yes, I'm sometimes being hired as just an actor, that's not a great word, but as an actor. I'm creating my own bizarre shows, like Goblin, Macbeth is finding its own life. But I'm also being commissioned to write plays. And I'm also now, in the last couple of seasons, being hired to direct for other companies. And I love the variety. I love the variety. Every time I'm a director, things happen in the room where I think, I must remember the next time I'm an actor that was a great thing that they did, or that's a thing I won't do, or, I'm writing a play. I feel very, very lucky and very artistically stimulated. And I've never been someone who is at ease just doing one thing. I'm a professional plate spinner.
And you work well across the country. I mean, you certainly have. And there's not as much mobility now as there certainly was when I was, early in my career, when people did travel back and forth a lot. But that is something that you do, right?
It is. And it is increasingly challenging. I'd say one of the number one mountains that we're having to climb inside the industry is the issue of housing. Yes. It's so sort of boring to throw that, include that in the conversation, but it's a problem. It's a problem. Housing is so expensive that the regional companies are having to say, well, we can't really bring you in, or we'd love to offer you this contract, but you're going to have to find your own housing. And then you have artists in the position of, well, I have to try to find someone to sublet my place. And then where I'm going, it's, $600 a week. The first theater company that figures out how to build a small apartment block and house whatever artist they want is going to change the face of that'll be the next big change in the artistic world. Is your contract includes a bachelor apartment that you can stay in for your contract, and you don't have to worry about it.
Well, that's interesting, because not in the performing world, but I know that in Prince Edward County, which is about 2 hours east of Toronto, and it's a huge tourist area, and my family and I have spent many summers there, that increasingly the people who actually live there and live there year round have said that businesses cannot staff businesses as they need to be staffed, because people cannot afford to live there. And I believe that there is, I don't know if it's the Royal Hotel, but some fairly new operation actually owns has done exactly what you've said. They either own a couple of houses or they own something where they can provide at a very, very affordable rate. They can provide accommodation, because that is the only way, particularly in the service industries that drive that area, and that's mostly bars and restaurants.
Yeah. We're in such trouble. Just humans, the world. We're in trouble. Yeah. There's a housing crisis. It's affecting everyone.
Yeah.
It's problematic.
Are you going to write something about that?
No.
Okay.
I the star that I live underneath of. I don't think that I'm an artist for social change.
Okay.
Not that I don't believe in it. I really do. It's just that's not my strongest drive. I like to, if there's any sort of suggestion coming from me in terms of social change, it's hidden inside of a big comedy bow. Like I'm sneaking that stuff through the side door. It's not my main drive.
Yeah.
I have friends that are far stronger, more successful activists than I am.
Okay.
So I can't see myself writing a comedy about the housing crisis. Although now that I've said it out loud, actually a few ideas are occurring to me. They'll be uncomfortable for everyone, but that's what comedy is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned. We'll see where. I'm glad I could. If there's anything I can do to help by throwing in more stuff, I'm only too happy to do that.
Yeah.
In your, including, I guess, the training, even before that, I'm curious, the people that you've worked with, well, I'm curious to know if there are people that you have worked with who have been, who have contributed seriously to your own development. I assume that Keith Johnstone would obviously be right there. And sometimes, sometimes we are aware of we're aware of the influence and the permission that somebody has given us, and sometimes it's by reflection and by in hindsight. I realize we're so busy. It's so easy to become preoccupied with oneself and busy with project and all of that, to not really always keep in your vision the people who are changing you.
Yeah.
Are there, apart from Keith Johnstone, are there others who have been really who have seriously helped you to define yourself, to define your art?
Absolutely. It's a long list. I had my grade 12 drama teacher sort of zeroed in on me at one point and said, outside of being a drama teacher, I also run a professional murder mystery company, and I think you'd be great. I want to hire you.
Yeah.
So I started getting paid to do stuff outside of being a student really early on, just because some mentor person saw something in me and decided to really give me the gift of their time, even before any sort of paycheck.
Yeah.
So Gail Whiteford was my high school drama teacher who hired me and kind of gave me my first paid work. But what that did is, because of that, I got exposed to a community of professional actors who also did these murder mysteries, on the side. Yeah. And you would get a free dinner and $65. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people, I would say, over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, as the industry is shifting and work opportunities are perhaps dwindling a little bit while theater companies are recovering from COVID, where people will say, "Oh, you figured it out, making your own work, that's the way to do it. You don't answer to anybody." And I say, that is not true. That is not true. None of us can do anything alone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So where an actor has to go and audition, if I've created a show, I have to make a sales call.
Mm-hmm. I'm
still having to interface with members of my community and also lean on the relationships that I've developed over time. And I really believe in expressing gratitude to the folks that have helped you out along the way. I mean, a lot of the folks that come to mind when you ask this question are people like, I'm in Edmonton. I just got to have lunch with Brian Diederich, who, when I was in high school, was at Alberta Theatre Projects running the student version of the Playwrights Festival. Mm-hmm. Alan McInnes was running the students' version of they were co-running it. Mm-hmm. I had no idea when I was 15 years old who Brian Diederich and Alan McInnes are, but I do now. Mm-hmm. And I look back and think, oh my gosh, the quality of artists that I was exposed to, even as a kid on the prairies. Yeah. The Playwrights Festival, in particular, in its heyday, in the late 80s into the mid 90s, mm-hmm. brought artists to Calgary from across the country that I had the privilege to witness mm-hmm. from the audience or from my position as a junior apprentice. Yeah. Wow. I've been spoiled by those folks.
Yeah. And are you in a position yet where you are mentoring younger people?
Oh, yes, but I feel so weird about it because I still feel like a 17-year-old beginner on the inside. So, when I do have the opportunity to get paired with a young person, I will say to them, like, listen, sure, yeah, I mentor you. I don't know. I'll offer you some very strong opinions that mm-hmm. you can agree with or disagree with, but I also want your mentorship in return.
Right.
Because the artistic community that I live in as a 53-year-old, I can't imagine what it's going to look like when that 19-year-old is my age. I really have no idea. Yeah. So I want to encourage young people the way that I was encouraged mm-hmm. to just really hear from someone or to offer like, yeah, keep going. Mm-hmm. There's something there. Be yourself. God, please just be yourself.
Yeah.
Follow your weird. That's what I say to young people. Follow your weird. I don't know if it'll work for you. I can say that it's worked for me. Putting on a clown nose and being on stage with an audience member for 90 minutes certainly was not my dream when I was doing my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I really hoped that someday I would work at Shaw or Stratford. That's what I was told was the benchmark of success in this country.
Yes. Yeah.
If I can contribute anything to young people now, I would say you should you figure out what your benchmark of success is. Mm-hmm. It might be Shaw or Stratford. Great. Yeah. Pursue it. Go get mm-hmm. those badges for your actor sash. But if you have some impulse within you to street perform, mm-hmm. that's your benchmark for success. Yeah. I have very good friends who are professional street performers who can walk out on a street corner and make $2,000 cash in 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Woo! That's more than I got paid the last time I worked at any professional theater company. Yeah. So if I can encourage you to develop that skill, because that's your impulse, I'm with you. Yeah. I want you to make $2,000 cash in 40 minutes.
Me too. No, some of what you're saying, all of what you're saying makes sense. Some of it, as I'm listening to it, some of it is, I think you can only sort of absorb or understand it after you've, when you have the experience of having tried a variety of things, or you're aware of how the various worlds of the performing arts work. In some ways, it's I know I've done a fair amount of teaching, and wanting to say to young theater training people, relax.
Yes.
As though anybody can, or the kind of direction that I know I've said this before not to you, but said, the kind of direction I hope I have never offered to actors. Say, oh, just go out and have fun. It becomes a kind of joke to say that because one assumes that that's something that anybody can do, and certainly at an early stage of development or young professional, how hard it is, because I think there's so much energy given to wanting to be good or wanting to be good enough, whatever those things are, that certainly gets in the way of relaxing.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking about another mentor of mine from university, Kathleen Foreman is her name. She's deceased now, but I met her through Loose Moose. I improvised with her before she was my acting teacher, so that was a bit strange. And she was a great mask teacher and performer. And I recall my 19-year-old self having my final interview with her before leaving school, and she said, Rebecca, you're never going to just be an actor. 19-year-old me was crushed hearing that, because I thought what she meant was, you're not good enough to solely work as an actor.
Right.
That's what 19-year-old me heard.
Yes.
Now I look back and I think, oh, Kathleen saw me better than anyone.
Yeah.
She really, and look at me, not just being an actor. I'm all these, and she saw it, and I didn't understand what it meant.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad she planted that seed, because over time, what it did is it changed my definition of success.
Yeah. So
that I have a richer, my umbrella that says success is quite a vast umbrella, which includes teaching and creating corporate workshops and street performing and self-producing and all of those things. So I feel like I have a more robust career for the folks that saw me before I saw myself.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really important point. When do you return east?
Mid-February.
Oh, okay.
So I finish a run of Goblin Macbeth at the Citadel, and then I'm terrible at taking holidays. I'm really bad at it. But I actually have a holiday booked. I'm going to go spend a week on a friend's farm, and then we're going to go skiing. I'm not going to ski. He's going to go skiing. I'm going to sit by a fire.
Okay.
So I'll be sitting by a fire doing prep for my next directing job, which is to direct Pride and Prejudice at the Grand in London.
Great.
Which I'm excited and appropriately terrified of.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, thank you. I'm really glad we were able to find the time.
Me too.
And lovely to meet you. And I really look forward to meeting you face to face rather than face to screen.
Without the clown nose.
Well, no, I'm okay with clown noses. But this has been great, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate getting to know you, getting to know the development of work that, for me, started by seeing you doing Blind Date.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And for everybody who's listening, thank you. And I know that you will enjoy listening to Rebecca, that you have enjoyed listening to Rebecca, and to many of the guests in Life in Stages. Please share this episode and other episodes with your friends. Follow the podcast, and I look forward to speaking to guests, many guests, as we proceed through Series 2. Thanks again, Rebecca.
Thank you.